Oh, we're recording. There we go. That way we can send it out on social media and the links to everybody who couldn't make it today. All right.
Right.
And Deborah, you had requested that we not put your photo on, I believe.
Uh, not on the page. I'm kind of shy like that. So
Okay. Just wanted
I figured if
to.
I mean I don't mind being part of the audience. So that's fine.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure because we grabbed Carter's photo, but Paige said not yours. So we have a good group today. Welcome, welcome. You are welcome to eat your lunches and chat and chew today. Welcome to September 17th. Big day today when it comes to what's going on in the world. We're going to do some conversations about what's going on with getting out the vote, voter engagement. And two of the people who have agreed to help talk with us today are Carter Walker, who's with Votebeat, and Carter's going to tell us a little bit more about that soon. And also the Dr. Deborah Tankley Brown, who's going to talk about our voices should be heard. Um, how about I know it's a little early. Yeah, let's take a moment to quick go around and just give your name and what part of the county you're from. And that way, and if you're not from Chester County, we'll still take you here. So please, I'm Karen Simmons, and I head the Chester County Community Foundation. And I'm also managing the 250 Commission for Chester County, which is trying to help people with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And voting is pretty important to that. Paige, why don't you introduce yourself next? Oh, and I'm from Kennett Square.
Okay. I'm Paige Marsden. I work with Karen at the Community Foundation, and I'm from Westchester Borough.
Beth Kay, I see you trying to stare at your screen. What do you got?
I'm Beth Corrales. I actually live in Delaware, so adjacent county.
We call that Southern Chester County from around here, Beth. Yeah. And Carter and Dr. Deb, I'm going to end up with you, so I'm just going to skip over. Emily.
Hi, my name is Emily Dina. I'm also in the Wilmington, Delaware area with Chester County Community Foundation.
And I see Giselle is here. Hello, Giselle. You're going to be able to help us with this conversation too, I hope.
We shall see. I'm Giselle Jones, and I'm a resident of Downingtown, and I am a member of the Westchester branch of the NAACP.
Glad you're here. Mike Buchanan. Hello. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Mike Buchanan. I'm a neighbor of Karen Simmons. We swim together. I'm currently working for a company that produces plastics, but I'll be retiring soon. So I'm glad to be participating. Thanks for inviting me, Karen.
Voter engagement's good stuff. Sarah Wagner. Can you hear? Hi,
Yes.
Sarah.
Hi, I'm here. I'm from East Goshen.
And you have a new job coming up in Boston soon, don't you?
Yes, I do. So not a resident of East Goshen for too much longer.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Sarah's been helping us with voter engagement stuff, so this is good. And Chris Keller, how are you today? You're sitting outside, aren't you?
Uh, yes, I am. I would recommend it to everyone. Chris Keller from Phoenixville.
Amanda Blevins.
Hi, I'm with the United Way of Chester County, and I actually live in northern Chester County. So it's good to be with you guys.
Glad you're here. Mr. Nick Hoffman, CPA.
It's me, Nick Hoffman. I'm a Kennett Square resident, not too far up the road from Karen, and Community Foundation board member.
Very good. And he's a sole proprietor CPA in case you need some good tax work, right, Nick?
That's right.
Mr.
Thank you.
Bleemer.
Hi, Hugh Bleemer, and I'm a resident of Westchester.
Welcome. Kevin Baffa. Kevin Baffa's eating lunch. Jason Arbuchewski. Okay.
Hi, it's Jason. Hi, I'm a resident of Paoli, and also a father of two Great Valley students, Carter. So go Great Valley School District.
Ah, that's
Thanks
right.
for sharing that.
I forgot about that. Yeah, good, good. Stephanie Stevens.
Hi, I'm a resident of the Kennett Square area and a longtime Chester County resident overall.
With much voting experience, I would say. Campaigns and all.
Fair amount, yep.
Yeah. And Ed Alwell, I see you're on the call. Ed, can you introduce yourself or no?
Yep. I'm not embarrassed.
Well, some people are eating and they're on mute, you know.
Well, I'm also chewing. Ed Orville, I've been a resident of West Whiteland since 1930. I've been an elected official there.
This is good. Thank you. And Clark Davis from CACS, Kennett Area Community Services, I'm guessing, Clark?
Yep. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Again, Clark from Cax and Kennett Square. I do community education here. I'm a Delawarean who crosses the border every day. So thanks for having me.
We let that happen, don't we, Beth Kay? Yeah. So Clark, you're probably doing some voter engagement stuff at CACS?
Kicking the idea around. Yeah.
Oh, good, good. Okay. Well, let's kick it around some more. So are people able to see the shared screen that I put up? And I think Paige sent this out and we'll send it out again and we share alike. And so it's National Voter Registration Time. And Carter, why don't you we'd love to hear a little bit about what is Votebeat and the Civic News Company. And then you're in Lancaster and you're covering the Philly regional issues across Pennsylvania, really. And so if you want to tell us more about that, I've been reading some of your coverage lately. And voter engagement, anything else you can do. And also after Carter, we'll have Dr. Deborah Tanksley Brown talk about what Black Women in Action in Chester County is doing for our voices should be heard. So I'm sorry, I messed up my own intro of you two backwards. Are we okay if we start with Carter and then we'll segue over to Deborah?
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carter. I am a Chester County native, though I live in Lancaster County now, and I work for Votebeat. I'm their Pennsylvania reporter. So Votebeat is a nonpartisan, nonprofit newsroom focusing on voting issues and election administration. And we really focus, people hear that, they hear elections, and they're like, oh, okay, so you were at the debate down in Philly covering all that, and not particularly. We stay away from the politics of elections and voting and really focus on the mechanics of how those things work, which I'll get into a little bit when I talk about our coverage. The reason we got started was in 2020. Our parent company, which is now Civic News, but it was for that another outlet you might be familiar with, Chalkbeat, which covers education. They had just seen that, around the country with Trump pushing his narrative that mail-in ballots were going to be fraudulent, that there was really a lack of reliable election administration's coverage. So Chalkbeat started a pop-up newsroom where they got some funding to put reporters in a lot of states around the country, all the swing states, I believe. Here in Pennsylvania, they put a reporter in the Spotlight PA newsroom, which is an investigative outlet out of Harrisburg, and we still partner with them. But in 2022, Votebeat formed into a more cohesive, standalone newsroom. And so now we're in Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, Texas. I believe I'm missing one there, but yeah, making sure we're trying to hit all the major swing states this year, except Georgia. I really wish we were in Georgia. And so I'm the Pennsylvania reporter. Obviously, Pennsylvania hugely important to the presidential election and federal level politics in general. And what I'm doing is I'm focusing on the rules or the confusion about how we run our elections. And this can sometimes get really in the weeds, which is a term in our profession for when you're explaining stuff in super high detail. Like a couple of months ago, I did a story on what's called logic and accuracy testing, which is when the county will make sure that its voting machines are properly counting the votes before election day. And I did a story a couple of years ago on the post-election audits that counties do to make sure that votes got counted accurately. So we're trying to explain those things in a way that will hopefully help boost the average voter's education on how voting in elections work. Since study after study has shown that voters don't typically have a great understanding of how the mechanics of elections actually work. A lot of people think it's just a thing that happens one day a year, but election workers are doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes all year long to make sure that that day goes off without a hitch. I knew one election director who used to say it's very complicated because basically what they were trying to do is organize a party for the entire county 2 days a year, which think about that. If you had to organize a party for a county of, what is it, 500,000 something in Chester County, that's a really big undertaking. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff that we are covering. Really excited to share with you some of the specific stories I've done, but if you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer them. I think you're muted, Karen.
Karen, you're muted.
Yeah, there's a buzzing sound behind me. Thank you, Paige. I just had a couple of generic slides about the whole voter engagement. And what always strikes me is how many people say that they don't vote because it won't make a difference. So when you kind of look at if more people would vote, what difference it could make, it's striking. And then really when I'm looking at some of the articles you wrote about, unable to find a polling place or being turned away at a polling place, or, did my mailing in ballots and things like that, do they really get through? It's kind of fascinating to kind of separate the reasons people don't vote for what some of the investigative reporting is that you're finding. And so what I was actually, and then again, the percentage of people who just have trouble finding polling places or miss registration deadlines. What have you been finding in your coverage and your investigations lately about election security, election misinformation, ballot counting, mail-in voting? What have you been finding specific to Pennsylvania, specific to the Philadelphia, the greater Philly region?
Yeah, well, we really, like I said, try and explain the mechanics of how these things work. I've done a lot of reporting in Chester County. Actually, I've spent a lot of time with the elections director there, Karen Barstone, to see how they're trying to better educate voters there. And I think by proxy, voters all around the state on how those processes work. They've really opened up their facility so anybody can come see, and they record a lot of what they do and put it online. I think the biggest problem is Pennsylvania's elections are so complicated that there is both deliberate misinformation that I spend a lot of time combating, but also just simple misunderstandings of how things work. Like the story that's up here on our homepage from last Friday. Outlets all over the place, many of whom I trusted, reporters I know that I like, were reporting that early voting was going to be starting yesterday in Pennsylvania, which and even Trump tweeted it out today. And I don't think any of that in particular is malicious. Of course, these news organizations are just trying to help people vote, but it's not how things work here in Pennsylvania. We don't really have early voting. That's semantical. You can go vote early if you request a ballot at the elections office, but it was missing the point that we have court cases going on that are delaying our ballot. And actually, this September 16th date has never been the date that early voting starts. It's just when counties start processing applications. So election directors, the Department of State, reporters here, we're all confused as to why national outlets were reporting this. So I tried to do a story that corrected that, and it did help a little bit. Some newspapers ran corrections on that, so I was pleased with that. Then I often as well will delve into more complicated or deliberate misuses of information. And I won't get into the breakdown of the terms here, but there's some difference between calling something disinformation when it's intentional or misinformation when, like the September 16th thing, it's just misused, or some folks like the term malinformation to describe deliberately, a little bit of the difference from disinformation on deliberate use of that. So an example of that, I recently did a long story that looked at some of the real instances of fraud in Philadelphia, dating back all the way to the early 1600s with the machine politics era, and how election assessors then would stuff their ballot boxes or have dead dogs listed as voters on their rolls. And I tried to follow that through line of those instances, like the real specifics of how they happened, whether or not they actually changed any races, and how things changed over time, to kind of give some context to when Trump or others say, "Oh, well, Philadelphia's elections are corrupt. You can't trust them." Okay, here's the history of what they're basing those statements on, but here's how things change that make that statement no longer accurate. I also did a story in February that tried to take a look at some misinformation that was going around about how all states, really, well, more than half of states and Pennsylvania, including Chester County, manage their voter rolls to take people who are dead or who have moved off of those rolls. There was some misinformation about a program that was operating to do that, and where Votebeat really shows its strength, I think, is in taking something like that, where there's a lot of very hyper specific information a person can point to and data points that they could bring up. And when the average person sees that, they say, okay, well, they have data and I'm not seeing a counterpoint to that. And where Votebeat comes in, where we can have a real strong influence, is in taking that data and putting it in the correct context and showing out where the person making that statement might have left out crucial context that changes the meaning of the claim that they're making. Yeah, I think I'll pause there for a second.
Misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. New terms. Yeah. Get that through. In some of the stories you've been covering, I see there's some links on the next page. Anything, again, specific to the region in Chester County that you're finding?
Yeah, well, what we cover, we really try and make sure we're picking out stories that are applicable to all states. Usually when I'm focusing in on a specific county, it's not good news for the county because it means they had some kind of major screw up that I want to point out and make sure it doesn't happen in another county. So you all are lucky that I haven't really had to do that with Chester County. I did do a story last November that you all might enjoy. It was about a judge of elections in Callan Township, who had just become the judge of elections, was somewhat of a election integrity skeptic before he really got involved and saw the process from the inside of Chester County. And that was a lot of fun to work on. The biggest thing that we are concerned with right now is what's going on in the courts. As you can see, there's 3 court stories here up on our page. And that does affect Chester County, how the counties will count mail ballots, if they have no dates or some kind of other errors, or what options voters have. We also often put together these big statewide look stories. Like I had explained, Pennsylvania's elections are complicated because it's like 67 little governments, all the counties running individual elections. It's not the Department of State running these things, which means that the counties can also have like very different rules from one to the other. Like in Chester County, you guys have the luxury of being able to use a drop box if you'd like to return your mail ballot. But your neighbors in Lancaster County, where I'm at, they don't have that option. You guys can cure ballots. Lancaster County doesn't have that option. And so we put together stories a lot of the time that will make maps or provide a list to people of, okay, here's the policies in your county. We're going to have one of those coming up soon that outlines all the curing processes for all the counties around the state. So keep an eye out there so you know what options are available to you in Chester.
Erin, you're muted again.
It's that buzzing thing outside my window. I am so sorry. So, Deborah, can you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing with Black Women of Action in Chester County and Our Voices Should Be Heard? And then it would be helpful, I think, to entertain some discussion about how we can help people understand and how we can help with voter engagement and what's really happening and misinformation and all that useful information. So Deborah, if you unmute, you'll be better than I will before you start to talk, Dr. Deborah.
There you go. I think I'm live now.
You are live.
Yes. Well, first and foremost, thanks for extending the invitation to come in and commune with y'all with regards to this ever-present urgent need to disseminate information and education to our neighbors with regards to the essentialness of voting. As has been mentioned, I am the co-leader of hashtag Our Voice Should Be Heard. My co-leader is Ingrid Tomlinson, and she is occupied today, but she is with me in spirit. So we are an action team of Black Women of Chester County in Action. And the overall mission of BWCCA is the holistic empowerment of women of color, in particular Black women, around health and economics and civic participation, i.e., through hashtag Our Voice Should Be Heard. We are one of three action teams. The other is our racial trauma, resiliency, and recovery. And then we have an action team that focuses around maternal and infant health, understanding that Black women are disproportionately impacted by it's hard. With regards to their maternal health, in that we succumb by way of just giving birth. And the rates of that are even higher than other third world countries. So with that overview, hashtag Our Voice Should Be Heard is a nonpartisan collaborative action team, and we work in partnership with representatives from secular and faith-based entities on common agendas. Our mission goal is to educate, motivate, and encourage underrepresented women and girls, Black and Brown, Latinx, immigrants, single mothers, the economically challenged, seniors, millennials, and LGBTQIA to exercise their civic muscles by being informed civic consumers, active in voter engagement, and inspired to consider leadership in political milieus on the local and state levels. And so we do that by way of interactive civic voter education presentations that can include such materials as what you see before you, which is our commitment, getting our feet to the street, starting at home, work in our community, and work with others. The action team is sought by milieus like Westchester University's first year experience instructors. And we are preparing to facilitate a presentation with 250 first-year students on October the 5th. Nice. And those presentations are interactive. We present a video by Yellow Pain. We also do a voter ed trivia game. And then we have questions and answers from those who are present. This coming October, we are going to be able to offer the opportunity for young people to register to vote.
Good.
And yes, and so we also do that with Coatesville OIC. We have been invited to provide civic and voter engagement presentations for their job readiness cohorts. And then we also employ our social media platforms. They also serve as conduits for us to disseminate information, education, tools by which people can be informed about how to access, their questions. Like, for instance, you have some documents that we sent.
Yeah.
One of the things that we do when we do presentations is that we hand out particular packets. We have our voter action guide. And this voter action guide was put together by one of our collaborative partners, Chester County Marching Forward. And we've tried to include in here everything anyone needs to know about voting. And it has what the election basics are. It has the federal, state, and local things that we vote for. And we also help people to understand that while the national election is of importance, our state and local elections are critical and feed into the national platforms. And so we then provide guidance on how do I register to vote, voting by mail or in person, and then where do I go? And we give people links to where they can go and register right online. And we also provide, this is the Pennsylvania voting in 2024 frequently asked questions. There are times when people will ask, well, if I've been convicted, if I have a record, can I vote? And so in more cases than not, yes, you can. And we provide links for where people can go to access that information directly, because we want to encourage people to be informed consumers, to do the research so that they can then be conduits of the correct information that they can share with people who are in their spheres of influence. And so this is prepared by, again, Chester County Marching Forward. And we try to put the information that we have been asked over and over again at presentations that we do, so that people can take this and they can share it with other folks. We also, I know this is a lot, y'all, but we also provide a document that identifies what's on the ballot. Oftentimes we go into the ballot to do the ballot, and there are positions on the ballot, and people don't even know what those positions are. Like, what is a prothonotary? What is that? No. So what we have done is we have made the list of the elected positions: president, U.S. senator, U.S. House of Representatives. We do also the state positions. And then when the time comes out, we do the local positions, so that people know, we know what we are voting for, as well as who we are voting for. And we encourage people to go to the websites of the candidates. to do their own research. Because we are nonpartisan, we cannot advocate one way or another, who people should vote for or even who I'm going to vote for. But we encourage people to do their research. Students in the classroom, we tell them that if you're preparing to take a test, then you do your homework, you do your research. And so to be a full citizen, we need to do the same thing. So I've given you an hour and a half presentation in 10 minutes.
And we thank you for that. It's a lot to summarize. I am glad to hear you got 250 Westchester University students coming and that you're going to be at the Coatesville IC. That is terrific.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. We also go where groups of people are. Oftentimes we don't operate from expecting people to come to us. So we do things like the Juneteenth events that were in Kennett Square and Westchester. So anywhere that there are going to be a congregation of people, we are prepared to set up our voter engagement station and put our feet in the street.
Dr. Tanksley Brown, you're also Reverend Doctor, right?
Correct.
So how about places of worship? Will you find in Chester County that you can do voter engagement in your houses of worship?
We have been invited to do such, yes. And so we have partnered, as a matter of fact, with St. Paul's Baptist Church. They have a group called MLK 365, and we do collaborative events around voter engagement and encouragement, as well as just past weekend, the Coatesville NAACP did oh my goodness, they did a full city blanket of voter engagement stations in which people were able to register to vote. They were able to check their registrations to make sure that they were still there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was awesome.
All right, I'm going to ask a delicate question of you, Reverend Doctor.
Uh-oh.
So our voices can be heard.
Yes.
For Black women of Chester County in action.
Yes.
I'm a white woman.
Yes.
Can I help as an advocate, or is that like really not going to be useful? We have white men here, and I'm thinking some of them want to help. So, I mean, voter engagement takes all kinds, but I feel uncomfortable.
Nope, because we work collaboratively.
Okay.
Right. So our partners include Chester County Marching Forward, League of Women Voters, all kinds of groups, because we come together around the common mission of encouraging and motivating people to be to exercise their full citizenship.
Right.
Our vote is our voice.
Mm-hmm.
We have power in our vote. And so, as Dr. Huey P. Newton used to say, if we're not part of the solution, we are part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so we come together with our allies and our advocates to do this work of making good trouble so that we can have freedom and justice for all. Now, don't get me to preaching. I'm supposed I am so I'll just leave it at that. Yes, we do go into places of worship when we are invited.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to open it up for questions, comments, observations, ideas. mean, here it is. It is National Voter Registration Day, or right? I mean, we've got all kinds of things going on to try to get people registered to vote. Yeah, please, Doctor. Reverend Doctor.
Can I also add this? And my husband and my son would be really proud of me for putting this out there, because I am a classic dinosaur when it comes to kind of tech kind of stuff. But what I have found is that our social media is an important, has become an essential tool in disseminating resources, educational resources, information, as well as voter encouragement messages. I encourage you to look at the Black Women of Chester County in Action's Facebook page, and our Instagram. Our Voice Should Be Heard has an Instagram page. And you can check out the resources and the voter encouragement messages that are posted, and you can share them. We know that if we talk to one person, that one person has a sphere of influence of over 100 people. So that we can create a ripple in a pond when we talk to just one person. And so if you share a post, a voter encouragement post, with another person, and they share with another person, we have a ripple effect that takes place. And the potential of somebody who is on the fence getting off the fence and saying, I'm going to vote this time.
The ripple effect. You're right. And Chris Keller, you have something to say, please do.
Thank you for facilitating and giving us all this opportunity. It's wonderful to hear the good work that folks are doing. Carter, you made a comment earlier that it's so complicated in Pennsylvania, and I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on that, if that's because we're a commonwealth as opposed to a state, which is an issue that we're having challenges with when we talk about affordable housing and trying to affect something in a positive direction. And then the other question I have is Washington State, where my sister lives, they've been voting by mail, everybody voting by mail for several decades. And she just cannot figure out what the heck the rest of the country's talking about. So I'm just wondering, why don't we talk about the places that are having successful online voter registration and voting across the whole state, and sharing those successes instead of this frustrating stuff that we're dealing with. Thank you.
Yeah, those are good questions. I would say that the reason I'd say Pennsylvania is complicated is twofold. One, definitely because we're a commonwealth. Like I said, 67 individual counties running their elections. And the reason that that makes it complicated, it would be fine for that to be the case if all 67 counties were doing the same thing. But the reason that there's some variation in what they're doing is because our election code is unclear in a lot of places. You know, it doesn't specifically spell out drop boxes, but it doesn't prohibit them. It doesn't specifically spell out a curing process, but it doesn't prohibit it. So that has left a lot of interpretation up to the counties. And, you know, some do one thing, some do another. And the real root of the problem, I think, and this is what my sources are telling me all the time, is just that we haven't updated our election code in so long that there's these old passages that conflict with the new passages that get added. So it just creates layers of confusion, and, you know, different attorneys are going to look at that and interpret it differently. About Washington County, that's a really good point. Something I try to do and should probably do more of in my coverage is bring in examples from other states. You know, particularly when we're talking about pre-canvassing, which is the ability to process those mail ballots for election day, we could definitely make a better point of pointing out the fact that almost every state that does mail voting has pre-canvassing in place, and Pennsylvania is an outlier in that.
Other questions, comments, observations?
There,
Yeah, Ed.
there was something in the newspaper I saw just recently where the dating, when people send these ballots in and they don't date, where do we stand on that?
Oh yeah, Carter, do you know?
Yes, it changes every week, unfortunately. So this week, the rule will be that you do have to sign and date your mail ballot. Now, the advice an election director is going to give you, and I'd give you as well, is just always sign and date the ballot. Then, even if there is a challenge or a change in the rules down the road, then you know you're covered. Just to give everybody a bit of backstory, you know, there's been litigation on this since our universal mail-in voting law went into effect in 2020. Some federal courts have ruled that under the Civil Rights Act, you didn't have to date it. That eventually got reversed by the Third Circuit Court of Appeals earlier this year. And then the ACLU and some other groups sued in state courts under our state constitution to try and nullify that requirement. But just last week, the Supreme Court said that the way that the ACLU had brought the case wasn't the correct way to bring the case. So it voided that ruling where previously the lower court had said, yeah, you don't need to date it. So now we're back to square one. You do need to date it, but I'm not convinced that that won't change between now and Election Day.
Thank you.
Mike, you have something to add?
Yeah, just that I had read too, and it's probably good advice, is that if you are mailing in your ballot, mail it in as early as you can. And that enables any correction or any mistake you might have made to be fixed in plenty of time to get your ballot counted.
Yep, that's good advice.
And how are we, Carter, what's the latest sources saying on does the mail actually go through?
Yeah, you know, there have been delays. In Lancaster County, there was last November, there was some kind of delay that prevented 200 and something ballots that had been mailed on time from getting to the county elections office by the deadline, which is 8 p.m. on election day. So yeah, unfortunately, there are sometimes mail delays with the postal service. So that's good advice to just mail it as early as possible, or utilize a county drop box, or go in and return it in person to the county.
So if people want to get more involved in voter engagement, what are people doing? What can people be helping with?
Right,
I see, Deborah.
Right now, I would encourage folks. I went to a meeting last week. This was from my personal edification. It was Chester County Marching Forward had a meeting talking about voter protection. It's one thing for us to encourage people to vote. It's another thing about protecting the vote. And so there is a need for 5,500 volunteers to assist with the polls. And so we need poll watchers, we need poll observers, we need people to be in the room so that if anything is observed, it can be reported and it can be evaluated. We need people to help with the counting. So if you go to vote.pa.gov, you can even look within your own county to see who is needed to help in your polling place. And that would be extremely helpful.
And I know, Reverend Doctor, that you served as a poll watcher. And Mike, I think you said you worked the polls last round.
Well, I actually, I was a poll observer.
Yeah.
And there's a little training that you do. And I had a partner, and we sat in the place just to observe. We don't engage. So if we were to have seen something that looked a little off, there is a designated person that we would connect with in order to present what we saw.
Nice.
And so there is training. You do need to call your committee contact person in order to sign up, and then you'll be given a link for the training, and then you can participate in that part of the process.
Okay. Vote.pa.gov. It's right there. Mike, what did you find when you were working the polls?
Yes, I'm not muted. No, I'm not. Good.
We can hear you.
Okay, that's good. No, it was, it's a long day, and I was actually helping to record. So I was on the side of, making sure that people got their ballots and checking them off on the list and spelling their names correctly. But I did note that there were observers that were on the side, and both parties are represented. I think you're actually not allowed to speak or engage. It's strictly a visual, observational and thing, and not to be intimidating. But that was my volunteer there. I was also a judge of elections many moons ago in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I think I was the youngest one in the state because no one else wanted the job. But so I've had a little bit of exposure to it. The one thing I did want to comment on too, when we talked earlier about other groups engaging and being supportive of like the Reverend Doctor's activities, is I would think a lot of organizations of goodwill should be more than willing to hear from nonpartisan advocacy efforts like we're trying to put forward and you're trying to put forward within all communities. So I'm not sure, and Karen, you brought up the white thing or black thing, but I think if everyone's on the same page as far as the cause of goodness and the cause of inclusion and the cause of equal participation, really for selfish reasons, because I think people who are denied that opportunity aren't around to provide cures and innovation and invention and things like that. So, but would the Knights of Columbus, would the Masons, would the Rotary Club, would these different organizations be willing to and look forward to having a presentation that's attempting to broaden the participation of the communities? I would think so, and I'd be happy to help in that regard.
Ed, what do you think? You had that look as Mike was saying it.
Oh, I don't know. I was in the service and I worked for a company overseas for many years. And I came back into this area, and I don't know who or how this happened, but they asked me to be judge of elections in West Whiteland Township, which I did a couple times. And as Mike's talking about this, I think just do an individual, just do something, whether you're a poll watcher, you're sitting at the table and checking people in or whatever it is, just get involved. I mean, this year is probably the most helter-skelter political turmoil we've had. Just get in there and do what a citizen should do. Contribute. If you do it once, I mean, just get out and do it. My experience with the Mike can attest to this. At the end of the evening, when the voting is over, we're having to count up the votes, and I forget how that was done, the names and what was on the machines, and then having to take that into the county. And I never was able to do that before, I guess 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. It made for a long day. But it was precise. It had to be precise. And so I wonder how people are even fooling the system. I don't know. And apparently it doesn't get fooled very much. It's more talk, much more talk than action. But I think we have a responsibility to do what you're doing today, to enhance voting, honest voting. So I'm pleased to be part of it somehow or other.
Reverend Doc.
Can I just say that dropping, no matter where we are, whether or not we're at the grocery store, the cleaners, the drugstore, we have an opportunity when given the opportunity to plant a seed. And there are often times when I'll simply say, have you planned your vote? Mm-hmm. Have you planned it? Because things are getting so weird. We need to have water with us. If we're diabetic, we need to have an orange. We need to plan and prepare for our vote. We don't know how long the lines are going to be. So if we have family and friends, we can start right where we have our spheres of influence to plant seeds for people to plan their vote. If you know someone who is 17, who's going to be turning 18 before you can help me out with the date, they can still register to vote, and they can register to vote anyway, because once they turn 18, then they'll be ready. Mm-hmm. And so these are ways that we can prime the engines for people to start thinking now about, do you have a neighbor who may need a ride to get to the polls? You know, these are things that we can do.
The ripple effect again. I'm going to bring us to a close because it's getting close to 1, and then actually just reaffirm just a little bit more information. If you are affiliated with the grassroots groups that's trying to do more voter engagement work and you're looking for some fast mini grants, we've been sending it out on social media. So it's an easy, just fill out the 1-page form and send it off in email for mini grants for voter engagement initiatives. And then also, if you want to become more involved with the Black Women of Chester County in Action, do I have a website up here? We're going to get it right up here again. The Reverend Dr. Deborah Tanksley Brown, Black Women of Action, Black Women of Chester County in Action.
There you go.
There you go. And Carter, you are writing stories every single day on Votebeat. And it's a free resource at this point. So, I mean, yes, thank you for all the coverage you're getting out. You want to add anything in comments before we close up?
My email's right there, and I encourage you to reach out to me anytime if you think there's something we should be covering.
Read all about it, and thank you for everything you're doing. And thank you, everybody, for one ripple makes a big difference. So we will be coming back for community conversations. Spread the word. Next month, we're going to cover elections and voter engagement again with a get out the vote younger or older, whatever it takes. So whatever the topic is, we'll be on it. And then we have other coming up every month throughout the year. So thank you for everything you're doing, and more to come. Keep in touch, and we'll send information. All right? Be healthy. We need everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks.
Get out the vote. Carter, thank you very much. I'm glad you could join us. And Reverend Doctor, it was so good to finally see you face to Zoom face. So more to come, right?
All right. Thank you.
All right.